On a stormy night in 1462, the villagers of Brasov locked their doors in terror. They whispered of a pale woman who walked only beneath the blood moon. A vampire who feasted on the innocent. Her name was Countess Elisabeta, and her legend has haunted the Carpathian Mountains for centuries. Welcome to a tale of dark legends, vampires, and cursed castles. If you love chilling stories about Dracula, blood rituals, and Gothic myths, make sure to subscribe and like. This keeps me motivated to bring you more terrifying vampire stories every single week. Oh, I almost forgot. What is your blood type? Mine is zero positive, so don't even think drinking mine. The year was 1462, and a thick, restless fog clung to the valleys of the Carpathian Mountains. The villagers of Brasov moved silently through the mist, their lanterns flickering as if afraid to shine too brightly. Every shadow seemed alive. Every gust of wind carried whispers of something unseen. Doors were bolted. Windows were nailed shut. Even the church bells, which normally marked the passing hours, tolled unevenly, as though frightened to disturb the night. For decades, the village had been haunted by stories of Countess Elisabeta, a woman both feared and revered, whose castle loomed above the valley like a black sentinel. By day, her towering fortress was silent and still. But when the sun sank behind the mountains, the villagers swore they could see faint crimson lights flickering in the tall, narrow windows, candles burning in rooms no living soul should occupy. Some said the glow was her eyes, watching, waiting, calculating. Children disappeared first. Their empty beds told a story no parent dared whisper aloud. Travelers venturing into the valley rarely returned, and those who did were pale shadows of themselves, mumbling incoherent words about red eyes and cold hands. Corpses were found with their throats marked by 2 small puncture wounds, as if some unseen predator had taken its fill. Others were never found at all, leaving only fear in their place. The villagers spoke her name in hushed tones, for saying it aloud was believed to invite misfortune. Elisabeta, they breathed, trembling. Some claimed she had not aged a single year in decades. Others insisted she had died long ago, only to rise again, more terrifying than before. But whether she lived or not mattered little. The stories told of her power were enough to keep hearts pounding and prayers whispered into the darkness. By night, her influence was strongest. The forests surrounding the village became a place of nightmares. Wolves howled with unnatural ferocity, their eyes glowing like coals in the mist. Shadows moved across the walls of homes, stretching and twisting, as if the darkness itself was alive. Some villagers swore they heard a woman singing, a mournful, enchanting melody that drifted on the wind. Those who dared to follow the song vanished, leaving behind only echoes and silence. The old women of the village who remembered their mothers' mothers told tales of her beauty, skin as pale as the moon, lips stained the deep red of fresh blood, and eyes that seemed to pierce the soul of anyone who dared meet her gaze. But beauty, they warned, was only a mask. Beneath it lay a curse, a hunger that could never be sated, an eternal thirst for the life of others. She was neither alive nor dead, but something in between, a creature that haunted both the world of the living and the shadows of the grave. On nights when the storm raged, she was strongest. Lightning flashed across the mountains, illuminating her castle for a heartbeat at a time. The wind carried her whispers through the trees, chilling the blood of anyone who dared listen. Occasionally, the villagers glimpsed her figure at the edge of the forest, tall, graceful, gliding silently over the frozen ground. No footsteps betrayed her. No rustle of clothing broke the stillness. She moved like a shadow given life. A predator with a beauty that was almost impossible to resist, and a menace that promised death to all who looked too long. The elders warned of her cunning. She did not strike blindly. She chose her victims carefully, testing their courage, their fears, their weaknesses. Once she marked someone, escape became nearly impossible. Families whispered about neighbors who vanished after wandering too far from home, only to hear the soft sound of a voice calling them back from the dark. Sweet, melodic, impossible to ignore. Those who followed never returned. Despite the fear, a strange fascination lingered among the villagers. Tales of vampire legends and cursed castles drew morbid curiosity. Some claimed they had seen shadows move along the castle walls, even in broad daylight. Others swore they glimpsed a figure on the balcony, watching them with eyes that glowed like dying embers. Every sighting, every rumor, every whispered warning only added to the dark legend of Countess Elisabeta, ensuring that her story would never fade and her presence would never be forgotten. It was said that the night she hunted, she would appear suddenly in the village square, standing perfectly still, as if carved from marble, observing. Her gaze was sharp, cold, and piercing, able to see the smallest sin or fear in a person's heart. People who met her eyes spoke of an unbearable chill, as if life itself were being drained from them. Their hair would stand on end, and their stomachs would twist in terror, for even the bravest warriors found themselves frozen in fear before her. Some nights the wind carried the faintest sound of her laughter across the valley. It was soft, like a lullaby, yet there was malice in every note. Those who heard it would tremble, clutching their loved ones closer, praying the sound would not draw her closer. And yet the bravest, or perhaps the most foolish, sometimes ventured near her castle, compelled by curiosity or disbelief. Few returned, and those who did were forever changed, haunted by dreams of red eyes, pale skin, and the touch of hands that promised both pleasure and death. As the villagers huddled in their homes, lighting every candle and whispering every prayer they knew, the air itself seemed alive with expectation. Something moved beyond the fog. Something ancient, hungry, and patient, and everyone, villagers, travelers, even the wandering priest, knew the same terrifying truth. When the blood moon rises, there is no hiding. No lock or prayer will protect them. The question lingered in every mind, unspoken but heavy in the air. Who will be taken next? And in that silence, with the fog curling like ghostly fingers around every home, every street, every shadowed corner of the village, one truth became clear. The vampire watches and hunger. The fog still clung to the valley as the villagers of Brasov whispered in fear of what stalked the night. While most huddled behind locked doors, one man refused to remain paralyzed by superstition. Father Andrei, a young priest with more courage than caution, had begun to see the truth in the stories. The disappearances, the pale corpses, the 2 small puncture wounds at the throat. These were not accidents. These were the marks of something unnatural, something hungry. He had spent years ministering to the village, burying the dead, comforting the living, and praying to God for protection. Yet no prayer, no ritual seemed to stop the growing darkness. Night after night, he observed the forest and the streets, searching for signs, listening for whispers carried on the wind. And he found them. The first clue came one evening when he visited a child's grave, the moon low and crimson on the horizon. As he knelt to pray, he noticed a shimmer along the tree line, a faint glow like candlelight moving against the wind. The air grew colder with each passing second, a chill that burned through his robes and froze his bones. And then he saw it, a figure impossibly tall and graceful, gliding between the trees, too quiet to make a sound. Her eyes, bright red in the dim light, seemed to pierce his soul. He gasped and fell back, clutching his crucifix. "By God," he whispered, but the figure vanished as if she had never been there. Andrei's heart pounded in his chest, yet a part of him knew that he had not imagined it. The stories were true. Countess Elisabeta was real, and she was hunting. In the following nights, Andrei began his investigation in secret. He visited the families of the missing, examined their homes, and questioned those who had returned from the forests. A pattern emerged. All who disappeared were last seen near the edge of the woods, or walking alone in the village at night. All left behind the same faint scent of iron and roses, and all had the same puncture wounds at the throat. No one wanted to speak openly. Fear made them silent. But the priest's determination only grew. He realized that the villagers' superstitions were more than stories, they were warnings. Each whispered tale was a fragment of truth, a clue to the creature that haunted their nights. And yet with every discovery, Andrei felt the walls closing in. He was being watched. He could feel it in the shadows, in the way the trees swayed though the air was still, in the rustling of leaves that carried no wind. One stormy evening, he followed a trail of crimson drops leading from the graveyard toward the castle. The path was twisted, overgrown with thorns and slick with mud from the rain. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the forest in jagged bursts. In those brief flashes he thought he saw her, Elisabeta, standing among the trees, her white dress glowing against the darkness, her hair like a river of midnight silk. But as quickly as the light came, it vanished, leaving only shadows. Andrei pressed on, gripping his crucifix tightly. He whispered prayers under his breath, each word a lifeline against the terror that clawed at him. He reached a small clearing where the fog hung heavier, thick and suffocating. The air was still, yet he felt it moving, sliding across his skin like cold fingers. A soft melody drifted through the clearing. It was impossible to place, neither fully human nor entirely unnatural, a song both beautiful and horrifying. Drawn to the sound despite every instinct, Andrei stepped closer, his boots sinking into the damp earth. Shadows shifted around him, and the trees seemed to lean inward, as if eager to see what would happen next. The melody grew louder, richer, wrapping around him, pulling at his heart. He could see her now, just ahead, a pale figure standing between the trees, watching him with eyes that glowed like dying embers. He stopped. His heart raced, every nerve screaming for him to run, yet something kept him rooted in place. She raised a hand, elegant and slow, and the wind seemed to carry her whisper. "You seek me, priest. But do you understand what you seek?" Andrei's hand tightened on his crucifix, his voice shook. "I seek only to protect my people, to stop the darkness that walks among them." A laugh, soft and cruel, floated through the trees. "Protection from me? Oh, little priest, they belong to me, body and soul, and soon so will you." The priest's stomach turned. He stepped back, tripping over a root, and the melody vanished. The forest returned to its unnatural stillness, as if she had never been there. Yet he knew she had been real. He knew she had been watching, and he knew deep in his bones that the night was only beginning. Returning to the village, Andrei warned the elders and the families, but fear had left them paralyzed. They would not step outside, nor would they speak her name aloud. Some even blamed him for attracting her attention, claiming that seeking the truth was foolish and dangerous. But he could not turn away. He could not ignore what he had seen. For days, he pored over old texts, seeking knowledge of creatures that walked the night. He read stories of vampires, cursed nobles, and the undead, each tale more terrifying than the last, each one echoing the truth he had glimpsed in the forest. He realized the monster he faced was no mere legend. Countess Elisabeta was real, and she was cunning, patient, and merciless. And as he studied, a chilling thought took hold. She did not need to strike immediately. She would wait, she would watch. She would learn his fears, his weaknesses, his every step. And when she struck, it would be perfect. Father Andrei knew one thing with certainty. The next encounter would not be a warning. It would be a confrontation. And the line between life and death, between hunter and hunted, was about to vanish forever. The villagers remained unaware of how close the darkness had crept to their doorsteps. They would wake one morning to the absence of loved ones, the echo of a scream lost in the fog. And they would whisper the name again, Elisabeta, because she was coming and she was hungry. The night was colder than any before. The fog rolled thick over the valley, curling around the roofs of Brasov like smoke from an unseen fire. Father Andrei stood at the edge of the forest, crucifix clutched in one trembling hand, a lantern in the other. He had prayed, fasted, and prepared for this moment, yet his heart still pounded as if trying to escape his chest. Ahead, looming above the trees, the silhouette of Castle Elisabeta rose from the mountain like a crown of black stone. Its towers stabbed into the sky, jagged against the blood-red moon. The walls seemed alive in the shifting mist, as if whispering secrets too ancient and too terrible for human ears. Every villager had warned him never to approach. But tonight, after another child had vanished from her bed, Andrei knew there was no choice. The evil would not stop until confronted. And so he walked, each step heavy, the crunch of twigs beneath his boots echoing unnaturally loud in the silence. The forest grew darker as he climbed, branches twisted like claws, reaching to drag him back. The path itself seemed reluctant to lead him forward, winding and broken, overgrown with thorns. Yet the lantern's light carved a narrow trail through the gloom. And then at last he stood before the gates. They were massive, carved from iron, their bars shaped into grotesque figures, faces twisted in agony, mouths open in eternal screams. Rusted chains held them shut, but as Andrei touched them, they swung open with a low groan, as though the castle had been waiting for him. The courtyard was silent, but not empty. He felt eyes on him. Shapes shifted in the corners, too quick to see, too silent to follow. The air stank faintly of decay, mingled with something sweet. Roses, perhaps, though tainted by rot. He raised the lantern higher, its flame trembling in the wind, and stepped across the stones. The great doors of the castle towered above him, carved with symbols he did not recognize. They were not crosses or holy marks, but strange, curling patterns, more like serpents coiling around themselves. With a deep breath, he pushed them open. The interior swallowed him in darkness. His lantern revealed a vast hall lined with columns, each carved into the likeness of angels, but their faces had been defaced, gouged out until only hollow eyes remained. Cobwebs hung thick from the ceiling, and the floor was layered with dust, though Andrei's instincts told him the castle was not abandoned. At the far end of the hall stood a throne of black stone, and upon it sat Countess Elisabeta. She was, as the villagers had whispered, tall, graceful, her beauty so perfect it seemed unnatural. Her skin glowed pale in the lantern's light, her lips blood red, and her eyes, those dreadful eyes, burned like embers. She wore a gown of deep crimson silk that seemed to drink in the darkness around her. Her presence was overwhelming, suffocating, as though the air itself bent to her will. "Welcome, Father Andrei," she whispered, her voice carrying effortlessly through the hall. "I have been expecting you." Andrei's grip tightened on the crucifix. "You are the curse upon this valley. You will release it." She tilted her head, a smile tugging at her lips. "Curse? Oh, you poor naive priest. I am no curse. I am eternity. I am salvation." Her words slithered through him, cold and tempting, like honey laced with poison. He raised the crucifix high, the metal glinting in the lantern light. "In the name of the Lord I cast you out." For the first time, her smile faltered. Shadows writhed along the walls, twisting like serpents, and a hiss echoed through the hall. The lantern flickered violently, almost extinguishing. Elisabeta rose from her throne with slow, unnatural grace. "You think your faith will protect you?" she whispered, circling him without moving her feet, her figure gliding across the floor like a ghost. "So many before you have prayed, so many have begged. Do you know what I gave them? Release, freedom, death without end." The crucifix trembled in his hand, but Andrei forced his voice steady. "You will not take another soul." Her laughter rang through the hall, sharp and cruel. "Another soul? Oh, priest, you still don't understand." She leaned closer, her face inches from his. "You came here to stop me, but it is you I wanted. It is you I have been waiting for." Andrei's breath caught. He stumbled back, but she followed effortlessly, her eyes locking on his with a force that froze his limbs. His lantern sputtered, the flame shrinking as shadows closed in. "You believe yourself strong," she said softly. "But strength is born of suffering. Faith is born of doubt. Tell me, Andrei, what do you fear most?" The hall seemed to pulse with her words. His mind filled with visions, his parishioners dead in the streets, the church consumed by flames, his own body lying pale and lifeless, drained of blood. He fought against it, whispering prayers under his breath, but her voice drowned them out. And then, with a sudden force, he raised the crucifix again. Light burst from it, searing the shadows. Elisabeta recoiled, her face twisting in rage, her beauty cracking for a single moment to reveal something monstrous beneath. Skin stretched tight over bone, teeth sharp as daggers, eyes burning with unholy fire. The hall trembled. The air filled with a deafening screech, and the lantern shattered, plunging everything into darkness. Andrei stumbled back, heart hammering, crucifix glowing faintly in the gloom. He could hear her moving now, not gliding but running impossibly fast, circling him in the blackness. The sound of claws scraped against stone. The hiss of breath chilled his ears. And then silence. The crucifix dimmed. His breaths echoed loud in the void. Slowly he turned, and there she was, behind him. Her lips curled into a smile, revealing fangs glistening in the faint light. "Run, priest," she whispered. "I want to see how far your faith can carry you." The hall roared with laughter that seemed to come from every direction at once. Andrei ran. The great hall shook with her laughter as Father Andrei sprinted into the darkness, crucifix clutched tight in his hand. His boots struck the cold stone, echoing down corridors that twisted like the throat of a beast. The castle was alive, its walls groaning, its torches flaring with sudden bursts of crimson flame before vanishing again. Behind him came the sound of pursuit. Not footsteps, but something far more terrifying. Whispers. They slid through the air like blades, cutting into his thoughts, drowning out his prayers. "Run, priest, run faster." Her voice was everywhere, sometimes close to his ear, sometimes echoing from distant towers. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls, reaching for him like claws. He turned a corner, nearly stumbling, and found himself in a long corridor lined with portraits. Each painting showed the Countess in different forms, young, old, regal, wrathful. But as Andrei passed, the eyes in the portraits seemed to follow him. Worse, the faces began to shift, their painted mouths curling into wicked smiles. One portrait even whispered his name. "Enough!" he shouted, raising the crucifix. The faint glow returned, and for a moment the whispers retreated. But only for a moment. A sudden gust extinguished the last of his lantern's flame, leaving him with only the trembling glow of the crucifix. He pushed through a door at the end of the corridor, slamming it shut behind him. He found himself in a chapel, or rather what had once been one. The altar was overturned, the stained glass windows shattered, and the walls were scrawled with symbols that made his skin crawl. Broken crucifixes lay scattered on the floor, their holy power defiled. He fell to his knees, whispering desperate prayers. But the air grew colder still, and then came the sound, the slow creak of the chapel door behind him. He turned. Elisabeta entered, moving with inhuman grace. Her crimson gown trailed behind her like spilled blood, her eyes burning brighter than ever. She did not hurry. She did not need to. Andrei backed toward the altar, crucifix raised, but she only smiled. "Do you see, priest? Even your God has abandoned this place. This is my chapel now." Her words struck deep. For the first time, doubt clawed at him. His hand trembled. The glow of the crucifix dimmed. She advanced. "All your faith, all your prayers, and still you came to me. You belong here in the dark, just as they do." Her hand gestured toward the pews. Andrei gasped. For there, seated in rows, were shapes, pale, silent, unmoving. Villagers. Their eyes were open, glassy, lifeless. Their throats bore the same puncture wounds. Dozens of them sat as though attending mass, but they were corpses, drained of blood. Andrei's knees weakened. "God forgive me," he whispered. In that moment of despair she struck. Faster than thought, she crossed the chapel, her cold hand seizing his throat. Her strength was inhuman. The crucifix slipped from his hand and clattered to the floor, its glow dying out. She leaned close, her breath cold as the grave. "Do you feel it now?" "The truth? There is no light. Only hunger, only me." Her fangs glistened as she lowered her lips toward his neck. Andrei closed his eyes, praying for one final miracle. And then a sound, the tolling of a bell. Somewhere in the distance, the church bells of Brasov rang out, cutting through the night with sudden force. The Countess recoiled, hissing, her grip loosening just enough for Andrei to wrench free. He seized the crucifix from the floor, raising it high. Its glow flared once more, burning against her pale skin. Her scream shook the chapel, rattling the broken windows, scattering the corpses in the pews. She vanished into shadow, leaving only her voice behind. "This is not over, priest. You are mine, and I will taste your soul." Andrei staggered to his feet, clutching the crucifix to his chest. His lungs burned, his throat ached where her fingers had pressed, but he was alive. Barely. The chapel fell silent. The corpses remained seated, staring blankly forward, their eternal vigil unbroken. Andrei knew this was only the beginning. She had let him escape, or perhaps she wanted him to. One truth chilled him more than all the rest. He had entered her castle, seeking to destroy her, but now he realized the horrifying reality. He was trapped inside it, and the hunt had only just begun. The silence inside the ruined chapel was unbearable. Father Andrei's pulse thundered in his ears as he pressed the crucifix to his chest. The church bell outside had fallen quiet, but its fading echoes lingered like a fading prayer. His throat burned where Elisabeta's hand had gripped him, and the memory of her fangs, glistening inches from his skin, gnawed at his resolve. He had survived, but barely. Andrei forced himself to breathe, to steady the trembling in his hands. "She cannot be stronger than God," he whispered, though the words felt fragile in the oppressive air. Yet a darker thought poisoned his heart. What if she was? The corpses seated in the pews stared forward, their lifeless eyes gleaming in the dim light. He dared not look too long, for he felt as though their hollow gazes might draw him into their deathless silence. With cautious steps he moved past them, exiting the chapel into another corridor. The castle stretched endlessly, its passages twisting like the veins of a giant corpse. The deeper he ventured, the stronger the stench became, copper and roses, iron and rot. The smell of blood. He turned a corner and stopped. Ahead lay a staircase descending into the depths of the mountain. Each step was worn smooth by centuries of use. A faint red glow pulsed from below, as though the earth itself were bleeding. Andrei's gut clenched. He knew he should turn back. But he also knew that within those depths lay the heart of Elisabeta's power. If he did not face it, the village and his own soul were already lost. He descended. The stairwell spiraled down into darkness, his lantern long extinguished, the crucifix his only flickering light. With each step, the glow grew stronger until it filled the air like a living thing, staining the walls crimson. At last, the staircase ended in a vast cavern. Andrei froze. The chamber was immense, its ceiling lost in shadows. Columns carved with writhing figures rose into the blackness, each depicting scenes of torment and sacrifice. At the center of the chamber stood a massive stone altar, slick with fresh blood. Around it, the ground was covered in symbols drawn in crimson, glowing faintly as though alive. And upon the altar lay a villager, alive, struggling weakly, gagged and bound with iron chains. Their eyes were wide with terror, their body pale from blood already drained. Andrei's heart wrenched. He rushed forward, but a sudden chorus of whispers stopped him. The shadows themselves seemed to speak, their voices overlapping in a chilling symphony. You should not be here. She is eternal. You cannot save them. From the darkness beyond the altar, Elisabeta emerged. Her gown shimmered like liquid crimson, her eyes burning brighter than ever. She held a chalice wrought of bone and gold, its rim stained red. You came willingly into my sanctum, she said, her voice echoing across the cavern. Brave or foolish? Do you know what this place is, priest? Andrei raised the crucifix, forcing his voice to steady. A pit of blasphemy, a tomb of the damned. Her smile widened. It is where I was reborn. Centuries ago, when my mortal flesh failed, I drank from this very altar. The blood of kings, the blood of saints, it made me eternal. She lifted the chalice, tilting it so a drop of blood fell onto the stone, where it hissed and glowed like fire. And now I feed again. Andrei's stomach twisted as she pressed the chalice to her lips, drinking deeply. Her eyes rolled back, her beauty sharpening into something monstrous. The air itself seemed to pulse with her heartbeat, each throb pressing against Andrei's chest like a hand. The villager on the altar let out a muffled cry. Andrei surged forward, shouting a prayer, holding the crucifix high. Its glow flared, cutting through the whispers, burning against the symbols on the floor. Elisabeta snarled, her chalice shattering in her grip. Blood splattered across the stones, the glowing runes flickering violently. She advanced, her movements faster than sight, her face twisting with fury. You dare bring your pitiful light into my sanctuary? She hissed, her voice layered with inhuman tones. I will rip the faith from your flesh. Andrei planted himself between her and the altar, the crucifix blazing brighter as he chanted louder, his voice echoing off the cavern walls. The villager's eyes widened with hope. Elisabeta lunged, her claws flashing, but the crucifix's light struck her, burning her flesh. She screamed, the cavern shuddering, stalactites cracking and falling around them. Shadows recoiled, shrieking, yet her strength did not falter. With a final burst of will, Andrei pressed the crucifix to the altar. The runes hissed, smoke rising as the blood boiled away. The glow faded, replaced by a suffocating darkness. For the first time, Elisabeta stumbled. Her eyes flickered, her form shivering like a flame in the wind. Rage consumed her face. You will regret this, priest, she growled. I will tear your soul from your body, and your God will not hear your screams. She vanished into the shadows, leaving behind only the stench of blood and the echo of her fury. Andrei collapsed against the altar, gasping for breath. He cut the villager free, whispering words of comfort though his own voice shook. He had disrupted her ritual, weakened her, but not destroyed her. And in the cavern's silence, he understood a grim truth. The Countess was not invincible, but she was patient. And now more than ever she would hunt him. For in defying her, he had not saved his soul, he had marked it. The night air outside the castle was heavy with mist, clinging to Father Andrei's robes as he stumbled down the mountain path. Behind him, the ruins of the blood ritual chamber pulsed faintly with dying embers, the stench of iron and smoke still in his lungs. Beside him, the rescued villager leaned weakly on his arm. Their face was pale, lips cracked, as though Elisabeta had drained not only their blood but their will to live. Each step was agony for them, yet they pressed on, desperate to escape the castle's shadow. At last, the crooked rooftops of the village came into view, lanterns flickering like distant stars. Relief surged in Andrei's chest, but it withered almost immediately. Something was wrong. The air here was colder, unnaturally still, as if the earth itself were holding its breath. No dogs barked, no children laughed, no voices rose from the tavern. The village was silent. Andrei's grip tightened on the crucifix around his neck. "Stay close," he whispered to the villager. "We are not yet safe." They crossed the threshold into the square. The cobblestones were damp, slick with dew, but also with something darker, streaks of crimson drying in the moonlight. Andrei's stomach sank. Then came the sound, a low murmur, like a dozen voices whispering prayers at once. It rose and fell, weaving through the narrow alleys, as if the entire village were speaking in unison. Andrei turned toward the church and his heart froze. The door stood wide open. Candlelight blazed within, brighter than it ever had before. The whispering grew louder, chanting now, words that clawed at the edges of Andrei's mind. He couldn't make out their meaning, but the cadence was unmistakable, ritual. Andrei pushed the villager behind him, striding toward the church with grim purpose. He stepped inside, and what he saw nearly drove him to his knees. The villagers were gathered in the pews, every one of them, men, women, even children, their faces slack and pale, their eyes glazed as though they were sleepwalking. They chanted in perfect unison, their voices hollow, soulless. At the altar stood Elisabeta. Her gown shimmered like living blood, her beauty sharper, more terrible than before. The wounds from the crucifix's burn were gone, replaced with a sheen of unnatural vitality. In her hands she held a chalice brimming with crimson. She raised it high, her voice cutting through the villagers' chants like a blade. "My children," she declared, her eyes locking on Andrei. "Tonight the covenant is renewed. Tonight you drink not as mortals but as mine." A dozen villagers stepped forward, lining up before the altar. One by one, she pressed the chalice to their lips. They drank eagerly, crimson running down their throats, staining their clothes, their mouths twisting into smiles of ecstasy. Andrei's horror mounted. This was no feeding. This was baptism. Elisabeta was binding them to her, not as prey but as servants. "Stop this!" Andrei's voice rang out stronger than he felt. He lifted the crucifix, light spilling from it in defiance. "You defile the house of God with your abominations." The villagers turned as one, their lifeless eyes fixing on him. Silence fell, broken only by Elisabeta's laughter. "Ah, the faithful priest," she purred. "You burned my runes, disrupted my ritual. Did you think I would let that pass unanswered?" She stepped down from the altar, the chalice still in her hand, her gaze never leaving his. "This village is mine now. Their blood, their souls, their prayers, all belong to me." She gestured, and the villagers advanced, their movements jerky but relentless, like puppets pulled by unseen strings. Andrei backed away, pressing the crucifix forward. Its glow flared, halting their steps, but only barely. Their chants resumed, louder now, a droning hymn that pressed against his mind, threatening to unravel it. The rescued villager behind him whimpered, clutching at his arm. "Father, what do we do?" Andrei swallowed hard, his throat dry. His faith was strong, but the crucifix's light was fading under the weight of so many corrupted souls. He needed to act, and quickly. His eyes darted to the altar. The chalice still brimmed with blood, her blood perhaps mingled with theirs. If he could destroy it, maybe her hold would weaken, but to reach it, he would have to push through the villagers, through their blank stares and clawing hands. Elisabeta saw his gaze and smiled, a predator's grin. She lifted the chalice again, tilting it toward her lips. "Shall I drink, priest? Shall I show you what true eternity tastes like?" Andrei clenched his jaw, whispering a prayer under his breath. His choice was clear: fight through the thrall and strike at the chalice, or retreat and lose the village forever. He raised the crucifix, the light blazing one last time, and charged forward into the sea of pale faces. The villagers screamed as the light seared them, clawing at their eyes, their flesh blistering. Elisabeta's laughter rose above the chaos, echoing through the church like thunder. Andrei reached the altar, his hand inches from the chalice, and the chapter ends in silence, leaving the outcome unknown. The heat of candles scorched Andrei's skin as he hurled himself toward the altar. His crucifix blazed in his hand, its glow forcing the thralls back, their screams rising in a chorus of agony. For a heartbeat, it seemed he might reach the chalice, but Elisabeta moved faster. She was upon him in an instant, her hand seizing his wrist. Her grip was iron, crushing bone, forcing the crucifix down until the holy light flickered like a dying flame. Her face was inches from his, beautiful and monstrous, her eyes burning like coals. "You dare touch what is mine," she hissed, her voice laced with venom. Andrei gritted his teeth, forcing the words out through pain. This is not your house. This is the house of God." The crucifix flared again, searing her flesh. Elisabeta shrieked, recoiling, smoke rising from her hand. The thralls faltered, their chants breaking into discordant cries. Andrei seized his chance. He snatched the chalice from the altar and raised it high. Elisabeta's scream tore through the church. "No!" He brought the chalice crashing down against the stone floor. Blood splattered across the altar, soaking into the cracks. The cup shattered into fragments, the liquid hissing like fire. For a moment the world froze. The villagers collapsed, their eyes rolling back, their bodies convulsing as though released from invisible strings. Candles guttered, shadows writhed, and the church walls groaned as if the building itself resisted. And then, silence. Andrei staggered back, chest heaving, his hands trembling with shock. Around him, villagers moaned, slowly stirring, dazed but alive. Relief welled within him, fragile and fleeting, until he heard the laughter. It began low, like a chuckle in the dark, then swelled into a crescendo of cruel delight. Elisabeta rose from the shadows, her form wavering like smoke. Though her gown was torn and her skin blackened by the crucifix's burn, her eyes blazed with undimmed fury. "Fool!" she spat, her voice echoing with inhuman resonance. "Did you think to break my covenant with a single blow?" The chalice was but a vessel. The blood lived still in them. She gestured, and Andrei's stomach sank as he realized the truth. The villagers' veins glowed faintly beneath their skin, pulsing with crimson light. They were no longer merely bound to her, they were her vessels now. Destroying the chalice had not freed them. It had bound her essence deeper into their flesh. The villagers began to rise again, their mouths twisting into grotesque smiles, their eyes glowing with her power. Andrei clutched the crucifix, his mind reeling. "Lord, give me strength," he whispered. Elisabeta stepped closer, her beauty sharpened into something inhuman, her voice a silken blade. "You see, priest, you cannot save them. To destroy me, you must destroy them. Every child, every mother, every friend you swore to protect. Can your God give you the courage to damn them all?" Andrei's throat tightened. Around him, the people he had baptized, blessed and buried, now lurched toward him, their hands reaching, their whispers returning. "Drink, join us, drink." The crucifix burned in his grip, but his heart wavered. Could he truly unleash its full power, knowing it would burn them as much as her? The rescued villagers, still weak, clutched his arm. "Father," they whispered hoarsely, "do not falter. Better we die in light than live in her shadow." Tears stung Andrei's eyes, but resolve hardened in his chest. He lifted the crucifix high, his voice breaking but strong. "In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, be gone." The church erupted. Light burst from the crucifix in a blinding wave, searing through the thralls. They screamed, their flesh blistering, smoke pouring from their mouths as the parasite of Elisabeta's essence burned away. Shadows shrieked and tore from the walls, fleeing into the night. Elisabeta herself staggered, her form unraveling into smoke and flame. She shrieked, her voice shattering the stained glass windows into a storm of shards. But as her body crumbled, her laughter lingered. "Burn me, priest, burn them all. But you cannot kill what is eternal. I will return, and when I do, I will drink of your soul." With a final scream, she dissolved into mist, vanishing into the rafters, gone as suddenly as she had appeared. Silence followed, broken only by the ragged breaths of the villagers. They collapsed to the ground, unconscious but alive, the glow fading from their veins. The church was in ruins, shattered glass, broken pews, blood still dripping from the altar. Andrei fell to his knees, clutching the crucifix to his chest. He had won for now, but Elisabeta was not destroyed. She had fled, weakened but unbroken. And somewhere in the mist outside, her whispers still lingered. This is not the end. Oh, I almost forgot. Before we step into the final blood-soaked chapter, don't forget to subscribe. It keeps me motivated to bring you more chilling tales like this one. Now, let's finish Father Andrei's story. And the church lay in ruins. Smoke drifted from shattered candles, and the villagers stirred weakly on the stone floor, freed but broken. Father Andrei stood among them, his crucifix glowing faintly in his trembling hand. But he knew it was not over. From the broken rafters above, mist slithered down, coiling around the altar like a living serpent. The air turned cold, every breath frosting in the night air. A voice, soft yet carrying like thunder, filled the silence. "You think you have won, priest? You think you have ended me? I am not bound by walls or flesh." The mist swirled, gathering, shaping itself into a figure. Elisabeta emerged once more, but she was changed. No longer clothed in silks, no longer the beautiful noblewoman. Her body was a shadow, her face a mask of hunger, her eyes burning with hatred. This was her true form. The villagers whimpered, crawling away. But Andrei stepped forward, his knees buckling, yet his voice steady. "Your reign ends tonight, Elisabeta." She laughed, the sound like knives scraping glass. "You cannot kill what is eternal. I will drink the blood of your children's children. And when your bones are dust, I will still be here." Her shadow lunged. Claws of smoke and flame tore at the air as she rushed toward him. Andrei raised the crucifix, its glow flaring, but the light sputtered under her fury. The relic would not hold her back forever. He stumbled to the altar, spotting the fragments of the shattered chalice scattered on the ground. Among them, a jagged piece gleamed, still wet with her cursed blood. Andrei seized it. The shard burned his palm, searing flesh to bone, but he did not let go. He pressed the crucifix to it, whispering the final prayer with every ounce of his fading strength. "In manus tuas, Domine, into your hands, O Lord." The crucifix and shard blazed together, holy fire meeting cursed blood. The light erupted brighter than dawn, searing the shadows from the walls. Elisabeta screamed, her body unraveling, her form tearing apart in tendrils of black smoke. "No!" she shrieked, her voice cracking into countless tones. "I am eternal. I am..." Her words ended in a wail as the fire consumed her. Her body dissolved, her essence burned to ash by the union of holy faith and her own corrupted blood. The church shook, dust and glass raining down, but then silence. True silence. The mist was gone. The cold lifted. The air felt lighter, as if the village itself had taken its first breath in centuries. Andrei collapsed to his knees, the shard still glowing faintly in his ruined hand. The crucifix lay charred but unbroken. He raised his head, sweat and tears mingling, and whispered, "It is finished." The villagers slowly rose, their faces pale but their eyes clear. They looked to him with awe, with gratitude, with relief. For the first time in generations, the shadow of Elisabeta had lifted, and outside in the east the first rays of dawn touched the horizon.